Hi, Greg Clark from the Centre for Public Christianity. Well, there's been a lot of heated discussion in the media and especially online recently about a new 15-minute movie called Fitna. It's a very confronting little film that attacks Islam head on. And to talk about it with me today is the other director of the Centre for Public Christianity, John Dixon, whose academic work covers the background of world religions. John, thanks for taking on this topic.
Great to.
You've seen the film, and I gather it is very confronting. What's it about?
Fitna is a movie put together by a very right-wing Dutch parliamentarian, Geert Wilders, and it's basically an attack on Islam, and it does three things. It shows you terrible images of Islamic terrorism. It shows you lots of footage of imams in mosques preaching hatred, and then it juxtaposes these with verses from the Quran, which appear on first blush to be endorsing the terrible acts of violence that you've watched.
Wow, yeah, it sounds like it's got a real message behind it. What was your initial reaction to seeing this?
Well, my initial reaction was complete shock, because you see some things in this film that didn't make the evening news for good reason, and in a sense I wish I hadn't watched it. At a deeper level, I was disturbed by the propaganda, the rhetoric behind it, the message behind the film. The
title, what does fitna mean?
It's an Arabic word. It means schism or dissension, that which divides us.
Okay. And I take it there's setting up enemies in this film. Who are the enemies? Who's on what side?
Well, one of the strategies of the film is basically to lump all Muslims into this category. So you not only get these images of Islamic terrorism and imams preaching hatred and the Quran, but statistics about the rise of Islam, particularly throughout Europe. And so instantly you're equating these terrorists with the average Muslim walking around France today. So this is the message. Let's be alarmed, not just alert, but alarmed, because Islam is growing and Islam causes great pain in the world.
Yeah. Is it a valid message? I mean, text of the Quran, these terrible pictures, is that message valid?
At one level, you've got to say, well, the footage speaks for itself. There are Muslims in the world who, in the name of Islam, motivated by their reading of the Quran, perpetrate these terrible acts of violence. That's a sort of simple thing, but if you leave the discussion there, I think it's very misleading, because there are other readings of these Quranic texts. The average Muslim you meet on the street in Sydney or in London doesn't hold these views. So the problem with the film is there's no nuance. Imagine that, a film without nuance. And what we need today is a more nuanced, robust discussion of these issues.
You're listening to a vodcast for the Centre for Public Christianity. For more great content, why not subscribe at publicchristianity.org.
So how would you like to see Muslims react to this? Obviously there's a lot of anger out there, but what would be a better reaction, do you think? What would we like to see as a result of this?
Well, I can fully understand Muslims being outraged by this, no question. I would only ask them, please, for our sake, try have a gracious response and help us to see things differently. Sit us down, reason with us from these texts. We want to hear your interpretation of these texts, because the reality is Quranic scholars throughout the centuries have not read these texts as the way an average Muslim on the street should treat Greg Clark.
Right. How have they read them?
Well, classically, the classical commentaries from the 13th, 14th centuries have interpreted these texts both as texts to do with the rules of war. That's the first thing. So it's not normal life. These are the rules of war. And the second thing is there's a very clear verse in the Quran in Surah 2 which says that this kind of jihad, this fighting for Allah, is meant to be a defensive posture.
It never initiates the conflict.
It's never meant to be first strike. In fact, the text says, Allah does not love the aggressor, do not strike first. And we have to listen to Muslim scholars when they say jihad is about response to an attack on Islam, an attack on the honour of God. It's much like when we listen to Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens, some famous atheist, pick little verses from the Bible and do them no justice, but use them against Christians. Well, we sit there going, I wish you'd listen to good Christian scholarship on this, you would come up with a different perspective. Well, I think we need to pay Muslims the courtesy of listening to Islamic scholars interpret these texts for us.
And how do you think Christians will react to this movie being out there? And what would we like to see from the Christians?
I fear they're going to react by just being alarmed and thinking every Muslim wants to do this, and being fearful that there's going to be a mosque on my corner and an Islamic school down the road. But I hope Christians will pay Muslims the respect of sitting down and saying, well, tell me what these texts are about. I mean, on first blush, they're not the most pleasant texts in the world, but we want to know how you interpret them for us. We don't want to just make up our own minds. We certainly don't want to listen to some right-wing Dutch politician. Will you tell us how to read your Quran?
Sounds like we need to work towards the public understanding of Islam as well as Christianity.
Indeed we do.
Thanks, John. Well, thanks for watching this, and if you're interested in this topic, please come and visit our website for more information, in particular an article about that movie, publicchristianity.org.